Hello. Welcome to another live broadcast. Thanks for joining in. So I have some suggestions that I have taken from a writer. Oh, what's her name? Her name is Julie Hotard, Hotard. And I have posted a link to her webpage. I'll post it again just so that we can see it up and that anybody can access that if they want to. So that's her article that has some very good suggestions for fighting right-wing propaganda. I understand that people might feel a little bit punched in the guts today as a consequence of Mitch McConnell's complete perversion of justice by upending centuries of impeachment tradition in the Westminster judicial system in both Britain and then the US, which took that system of impeachment in order to be able to hold people in authority accountable even before laws were written or even before laws were instituted. So Trump has broken not only laws, but also abused his position as president of the United States. Does anybody need explaining of what he's done just in relation to the very narrow look at the Ukraine situation, where he took $391 million that didn't belong to him, that was American taxpayer money due to be given to Ukraine by bipartisan appointment of Congress. Hola, we have some porn bots on at this time of day. Okay, let's get on that so we can block it. I'll need to log in a different account. Goodness. Periscope, that's not very nice for your users. Okay. So, oh, wow. So there's 15 people already watching me wrestle with how quickly I will be able to tap left. Yes. Anybody else can help me? Oh, I've got another troll. Do we block OK Boomer? He is a troll and he does frequent this. Oh, so you tried and you couldn't block them? I'm not seeing any comments from them at the moment, so maybe they're on YouTube. Wow. Yep, I was maligning Periscope, and that's a YouTube troll. That's quite fetid YouTube. Whew. Okay, so let's go back to how people have been up very late watching the impeachment scandal. And the scandal is essentially that the Republican senators are on trial. Trump's essentially already been found guilty if you just take the miscarriage of justice Republicans out of it and look at the House, where they presented evidence where Donald Trump was invited to participate, and his lawyer, Pat Cipollone, wrote a letter saying, we disincline to participate. We view this procedure as flawed, blah, 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 blah. All right, so here we go. Maybe I'll be able to block comments this way. Still working on that. So at least that means the Periscope viewers can't see it. So that's good. That just means we have the live YouTube viewers who are being subjugated to a particularly nasty stream of very graphic, pornographic commentary. Lordy. Let's go comments. Live comments. No. All right. Well, in any case, yes, I've got trolls this late because it's just warming up time in Moscow, I would imagine. Actually, what is the time in Moscow? I've got no idea. Let's have a look. Moscow world clock. It's 10 a.m. in Moscow. So they've been probably up at their work desks for an hour, And I'm even including people in neighboring Eastern European countries that have people who would welcome getting a pittance from the Kremlin. So, yes. Yes, 1 a.m. in the morning, which might mean that that the Senate trial has just finished for the night. Now, Chief Justice Roberts gets to go home and have a few hours sleep because he's due up in the morning to participate in closing arguments in some Supreme Court matter. But yes, Mitch McConnell is on a really tight schedule of pushing through the sham trial so that Trump can make his State of the Union speech and announce to the world that he has been exonerated by the Republican majority in the Senate, who have signaled their intention to disregard all evidence, oppose all introduction of new witnesses and relevant documents, even as copious quantities of inculpatory evidence continues to make its way to the public's attention via the media. So we have Lev Parnas, who was probably purposefully arrested by the Southern District of New York, because that comes under William Barr's jurisdiction. And he and Barr and Giuliani probably set it up so that Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman would be arrested at the airport with a one-way ticket to Vienna, which they apparently do a lot anyway because they work for Trump and that associated mob arrangement. So they often don't know when they'll be required to come home. They get one-way plane tickets, cheap, relatively cheap. And yes, this time Giuliani was going to go see them off at the airport and he didn't turn up, probably because he knew through arranging it with Barr that they would be arrested before they could be subpoenaed by the House. Now, Lev Parnas evidently doesn't enjoy the process of being thrown under the bus, so he's trying to safeguard himself against the fate that Epstein's suffered whilst in a jail under the jurisdiction of William Barr. So he is spilling the beans as much as he can. They went through the court, an Obama appointee called Judge, don't know how to pronounce it, but it's Oetken, Oetken, who is one of the first, in fact, possibly the first gay judge appointed to that particular level of court. I shouldn't say that for sure because I merely skim-read over that piece of information. But in any case, he validated the release of materials from Lev Parnas's phone. So that had been confiscated from Parnas when he was arrested, with 6 other devices and more devices found at his home as well. And Lev was allowed to release contents of that, first of all, to the House investigatory committees, and also he's releasing the contents of that now to social media and talking about it with Rachel Maddow and other people like Anderson Cooper. Yes, you couldn't believe it that Roberts called out both sides. I guess people have been trying to remind me on social media not to get my hopes up too much about Chief John Roberts, because he's made some highly ridiculous decisions in terms of Citizens United, highly unjust decisions, so that he may very well be such an ingrained partisan conservative that he cannot act justly because he's so partisanly steeped in ideology. And in this instance, he might just really be unable to extricate his reasoning processes from a fundamental desire to let conservatives come out on top and minimize how bad they look. And they really do look so bad, setting a precedent of no new witnesses being called for a Senate impeachment trial. So yes. Now let's see. I can get off Periscope. It's so funny because I haven't broadcast for a few days and now all of a sudden I'm broadcasting twice in the one day. But it's still good to be here, and it's good to be up late, keeping anybody company whose synapses are all frizzled after having to contend with the out-and-out corruption of the Republican Party under Mitch McConnell's leadership, but also Trump's leadership. That's okay, Caroline. You can always catch up. So yes, while I'm at it, thank you to any replay viewers. I hope you enjoy. Let me explain again what's up here. Grabyourwallet.org is a website that allows you to make purchasing decisions relating to Trump people who advertise on Fox News, which is essentially Trump media. MediaMatters.org also lists companies that you should be avoiding. And a Twitter account, Sleeping Giants, SLPNG_Giants, very good for alerting you to companies that urgently require you to spend your consumer dollars elsewhere. Designation 6, another Twitter account that frequently lists Fox advertisers, and Consumer FX. Fox News advertisers, I'm not sure if that website has a current list, but check it out. What I would like to do if I ever live in the US, which I still may yet do, is review products belonging to competitors of companies that choose to advertise on Fox. So the one that breaks my heart probably is Disney, because I do quite like Disney movies. As per many other people in my generation, they've shaped a great deal of my moral conscience and my framing of the world and understanding of the world. So it's a little bit sad. Let's see if I can. Now maybe I can go live into my own broadcast and block people. I don't think it's worthwhile arguing with Trump supporters, but I do prefer them to go away where possible. Okay, I can't see any at the moment. But yes, I can still see that there's 10 people listening, so I'd best be a good entertainment deliverer and continue to produce analysis pertaining to the current trial. So let's see what I've got for you. All right. So I had that Tom Nichols comment up. Oh, wow, I missed that update. So there was an update 14 hours ago saying that Mitt Romney pretending that Mitch McConnell changes from the Clinton trial rules are modest, and he won't be voting today on motions to call for witnesses. So it looks like the Republican Party are even trying to do away with voting to vote on witnesses. Jeff Flake is sitting in the Senate gallery. I wonder what Pat Cipollone just said to Nadler. Maybe we can watch it and find out. Tell me if you can hear. Oh. Let's see. If I take this out and press play on here, then let's see if anybody else can hear. No. What I'm trying to do is, oh, that's not going to play for you guys because it is playing internally through this microphone here. All right. Well, if anybody sees what Pat Cipollone just said, I'm sure it'll be elsewhere on Twitter. So an hour ago, Pat Cipollone saying something. Do you know what? It's not relevant, is it? Pat Cipollone's been outed a lot today across media for being a big liar and pretending that Republican House representatives were denied access to the Security Compartmentalized Information Facility, or SCIF, as it were. So he got personal to Jerry Nadler. Interesting. Did you see a judge gave up today? Yes, I did, because they ordered for somebody not to be deported, and ICE deported them anyway, a teenager from Iran. And the judge said, I don't think they're going to listen to me anyway. I give up. So that really would have felt like watching democracy roll over and die a little bit, because watching members of the judiciary system give up That's one of the last bastions of hopefulness. But at the same time, we did already know that a lot of the judiciary is compromised by being Trump appointees. Anybody touched by Trump is instantly rendered more corrupt. Typically, they're obliged to Trump because he's appointed them even when the American Bar Association has deemed them to be unqualified. Or just common sense has deemed them to be unqualified. If they're lawyers who've never tried a case in court, etc., and Trump deems them worthy of a lifetime appointment, they know that in order to return the favor to Trump for their undeserved appointment, they have to make Trump-friendly decisions. And they do. If you're just interested in Australian corruption, by the way, yes, they're picking up on Trump levels of corruption by just saying when called out, oh, no, I did perfectly the right thing. What I did was perfect. I'm not going to apologize for it. So that should be very familiar to people who watch Donald Trump or listen to him. But this lady with a gun is someone who misused $100 million of federal money to give out sporting club grants, but instead of giving it to the people with the best applications, and they had to go through an arduous application process, she distributed most of the money to wealthy seats, or usually wealthy seats that voted Conservative in the first place. So in Australia, most wealthy suburbs vote for Conservative politics. We don't have the poor red voting situation where poor people vote for Republicans because they feel that they need to do so out of social conservatism. Historically, we haven't had that type of movement in Australia. But anyway, this wealthy lady was given a gift of a membership to a sporting club, which she then approved a $36,000 taxpayer money federal grant for without disclosing the conflict of interest. She did not declare that she was a member of the shooting club that she presented a $36,000 grant to, nor did she declare that they gave her club membership as a gift. So let's look. I'm just still scrolling down it's an anti-Hillary Clinton ad, which we don't like, which means I might as well unfollow that person. I don't need my feed filled up with oh, that's sad because it's a civil rights lawyer. Oh, we'll keep a civil rights lawyer. Thank you for liking my tweet of my Periscope account that says GOP scandal only piques the public's interest more. This is going to look very reflective. Infinite balances. All right. Let's go away from the bad Hillary Clinton comic. We agree with Hillary Clinton where I am because we understand that Bernie Sanders did a lot to sabotage the outcome of the 2016 election by failing to concede a loss in the primary elections, even after he had millions more votes in various states. So I sympathize a little bit with people's attraction to Bernie and his policies, because America certainly swung very far to the right in its policies, and the outcome of that is atrocious for American citizens who aren't in the ranks of the uber wealthy. But the antidote to that is not the man who lied about Russian interference, because there was Russian interference in favor of Bernie in 2016. The Kremlin rightly saw Bernie as a powerful agent for division, and that he had a cult following that could easily be whipped up in a voter suppression measure to fail to turn out for the actual Democratic candidate who won by millions of votes. So I don't support Bernie. I don't support the way he tweeted just a few days before the election that he didn't think people who were going to vote for Trump were either racist or sexist, which was a big green light for his aggrieved supporters to go and vote for Trump. He gave them permission. He would have done so purposefully knowing that a Trump victory might make his support all the more solid, because people might be very interested in pursuing Bernie as an antidote to Trump. Bernie is much further economically left than Trump, but they still have some populist tendencies in common. Bernie has taken support from the NRA and has earned himself, I think, a C rating at some point from the NRA. Voted against the Brady resolution to be able to sue gun manufacturers for mass murders. He's not the most productive of senators because he doesn't easily build consensus. He motivates a lot of people with his outrage and his anti-wealthy rhetoric. But a lot of people in the US are aspirationally wealthy, if not actually wealthy, and they don't embrace anti-wealth rhetoric. They don't embrace anti-capitalism. And people in the Democratic Party don't embrace someone who's frequently denounced Democrats, or what does he call them? The establishment. He doesn't. A lot of Democrats feel themselves to be the Democratic establishment, and that Bernie, as he has sometimes declared himself to be, is an independent and not a Democratic candidate for the presidency. Bernie, my attitude towards Bernie may very well lose me many followers, which doesn't bother me in the slightest. I just hope I inspire people to question their support of Bernie if they still do. And clearly many people still do. But I'm hoping Elizabeth Warren supporters at some point see the light, even though I'm sure there's a lot of motivation to undo the injustices of the 2016 election and have America's first female president. As well, Elizabeth Warren has been productive in instituting some measures to provide economic justice for Americans who are exploited by essentially vulture capitalists in the banking or in the predatory loan industries, as well as wanting to have a medical system that isn't structured as a privatized system that exploits people and makes it draining and wearisome to try and get economic reimbursement for your healthcare expenditures, as well as making people overly dependent on whatever job they have, so depriving them of freedom and flexibility because they daren't lose medical coverage even for a minute in case anything happens to them. So, bad Bernie. Elizabeth Warren's fine, but the people America really needs to be listening to are Black voters who know America better than America knows itself. They're not under any illusions. They understand the power of white supremacy because they have felt more of its impact on their life. So they understand that Barack Obama's election and two-term presidency was so aggravating to white supremacists and their worldview that people were prepared to overlook the criminal past and dodgy resume of Donald Trump and put him into office purely because he ran on a platform of promoting the interests of white people. He implied this and made it quite evident with his willingness to overturn normal social norms and violate normal social taboos and describe Mexicans as criminals and rapists with some exceptions. So Donald Trump really put his hand up during the 2016 campaign as a white supremacist, and all of the people who don't necessarily identify themselves as white supremacist, but whose feelings get aggravated by the presence in the Oval Office of a Black African-American man who turned a Republican devastated economy around and put it in recovery mode and set it on its way. People who watched Fox News and were unable to process the fact that the American economy was in recovery and could not bring themselves to pay attention to graphs showing that the American economy was in recovery, now look at Trump's continuing upward economic trajectory and say, look at the marvels that Trump has wrought. So there's Adam Schiff speaking in the background. And he's saying that we're making it hard for you to say, I don't want to hear from these people. I don't want to see these documents. It's not our job to make it easy for you. It's our job to make it hard to deprive the American people of a fair trial. Oh, I have not been looking at the comment section. So let's see if there's any comments. Okay, Caroline said, everything Trump touches dies. Thanks, Caroline. See you later. I might change the Twitter. Okay. So let's see what else we have today. She made the funding announcement personally and failed to disclose her membership of the club. It's good to remember that women can also be corrupt. Yes, Trump is denying documents, hiding witnesses, hiding his guilt, and Republicans have very thoroughly exposed themselves today as being complicit in that obstruction of justice. Oh. Susan Collins of Maine cast the first vote to break with party lines in the 10th Amendment to the rules of the day. It was the first vote to be 52 to 48 rather than 53 to 47. Hey, look, here's a book called Code Red, Computerized Elections, with compromat plus election rigging to explain Republican actions. That would be great to have a hand count with hand-marked paper ballots in the 2020 elections, and it would certainly make a lot of people feel more reassured. Somebody went over to the Fox News website and it's like diving into an alternate reality. This is true. This is why you need to be following Sleeping Giants. So this is Sleeping Giants Australia, but it initiated in America. Community initiatives to make racism, bigotry, misogyny, and climate change denial less profitable. So it's not going to fix the world problems. Let's see if I can go and search that right now for you. Search Twitter, Sleeping Giants. Here we go. They're the worst is Steve Bannon's commentary about Sleeping Giants. They've got 250,000 followers. They should be joined by everybody. Wow, they've even comically put up their a special email address for death threats so that you can send that. Impeachment hearings is trending at number 3, and I'm Awake is trending at trending at number 2 is impeachment hearings, and at number 3 is I'm Awake. So why are people awake? I'm presuming because, yes, it is probably the case that Trump bitched at Cipollone during the last bathroom break because Trump wants aggression to feed the emotional impulses of his followers who have that fascist contagion of being drawn now to bullying and drawn to things that aren't rational but have the energy of dominance. To all those poor social media managers at news outlets working and live tweeting at this ungodly hour, I see you. Fair enough. Yes, McConnell is not pathetic or spineless. McConnell is a criminal. So yes, which Adam Schiff is pointing out that 2 + 2 = 4, as it does. All of the various witnesses in the House, many of whom were Republican appointees. Fiona Hill, Trump appointee to the position of advisory on Russian affairs, etc. I'm not ashamed to admit that reading I'm Awake tweets made me teary with pride this morning. You can do this, America. That's nice. Watching my country's rule of law erode before my very eyes by elected officials sworn to uphold it. It is a blow, and we still have to work on strategies. While free speech is possible, We have to acknowledge that we're not in the worst case scenario yet. It just doesn't feel good advancing down a clear path to fascism. For all the people who were just hoping against hope that it wasn't really a path to fascism, or that we could be turned off this path at an earlier stage, no. No, we couldn't. Fascism is a bit like a ball rolling down a hill, but there are things you can do. So Julia says she has it on even if she falls asleep. She's sure her subconscious will hate McConnell. Oh, someone says, I cherish your insight. Thank you. Harvested Beat says, it is remarkable how much energy you put into monitoring the politics of a country in which I do not live. True, but it's also really the story of our time. I mean, imagine that Nixon was sabotaging the climate, and you had that problem compounding Watergate, and you'll understand my emotional investment in a leader of the world's largest superpower who doesn't believe in climate change, who is actively sabotaging action on climate change. And that's something, I mean, climate change sounds too innocuous for what it is that I'm worried about. I'm worried about climate devastation. I'm worried about my children not being able to live in a civilization in as little as a decade because of the damage to agricultural systems from increasing temperatures. Not being able to eat fish anymore because marine systems will have been so devastated by increasing calcification of the water because of the CO2 in the water. Sorry, the increasing acidification of the water, which actually makes things that have shells, the shells become thinner because of the changing pH balance of the water. Oh, that was your question. Great question. Why does anything matter? Is a piece of cynicism that is often used by fascists to muddy the waters, to inspire disengagement, to pretend that truth is not anything that can ever be established, that there's just different people's points of view. Now, I'm absolutely prepared to accommodate people with other points of view and to work out, to find things we have in common. But I do that best at arm's length, because if people I know start harassing me about Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump, I feel quite a lot of tension, and I feel a resolve saying I won't allow my platform, the audience interest that I've built up from my frequency of broadcasting, to be used to promote untruth and propaganda. So I will typically block people who come on here and profess slogans like Trump 2020 or even Bernie's the greatest. Was the other person arguing that climate change doesn't matter, or just arguing that politics in general doesn't matter? Hang on, I'll go to the side to drink water. Does it matter if you die at 30 or 70? Well, it might matter. I'm older than 30 for a start, so I'm running no risk of dying at age 30, but I do have young children, and I gave them life. I brought them into the world, and it's my responsibility as well as my privilege to seek for them to have a better life than myself. And I don't anticipate that is possible at this point. I anticipate that the world will have degraded into a far worse scenario, and that's happening before our very eyes in Australia, with the amount of burnt rainforest, burnt forest land, burnt bush, the amount of pollutants that were in the air over the past few months that were damaging the lungs of Australian children and damaging the well-being of unborn children, damaging pregnant mothers, So I know that people on the right often claim to be very interested in protecting the unborn, but they only want to protect them from their own parents, because to conservatives, everything is about individual responsibility, and they're overreacting to what they perceive as being a diminution, a social move that has diminished a perception of individual responsibility. They look at the left and how we are frequently arguing in an academic style way about the contribution of multitudinous factors and how governments contribute to outcomes, and that psychologists will, do studies and make generalizations and say everybody that has come across this factor has been impacted on this way. And conservatives, to a degree, I think quite rightly, lament the passing of a sense of individual responsibility, that even mental health has become an illness that can just arbitrarily infect you, and you don't have any obligation to try and maintain your mental health. I think people on the left would argue, well, sure, take care of your own mental health. You have an obligation. We don't intend to communicate the idea that it's entirely arbitrary whether or not you get a mental illness. We just want more compassion and more available help. The world is worse now. Well, somebody's arguing the world is worse now. Sweetheart, we live, and I'm presuming because you have access to the internet, that you live in a highly industrialized society, that if you're literate, you can read and write, and you can access a computer, and you can access the internet, then you're in a position of significant privilege. And so, no, the world is not a terrible place for you. There are people being beheaded around the world, but it's not you, and it's not likely to be people in the country in which you live. My recommendations for today on how to make it better is to use these various organizations and social media accounts to marshal together some consumer power to fight back against the wave of propaganda that depresses people, that disengages people, that falsely sells Trump as a successful businessman, as a successful leader, as someone with any type of morals or principles who will, refrain from hurting others even if he's trying to advance his personal goals. So I have no doubt that Trump would not hesitate to launch nuclear weapons and cause a third world war if he felt that he had no other option for avoiding jail. He's a very self-serving criminal who has very probably engaged in sex trafficking of children for extended periods of time. He's certainly money laundered for Russians through his casinos, and that is facilitating sex trafficking, the sex trafficking of minors, because that is how Russian mobsters have made money, is by selling children and drugs to other people and then concealing the sources of their wealth by washing their money through casinos. So going into a casino with cash money, winning some of it back, letting the casino owners take a cut, and then voila, they have fresh, clean notes that don't show any signs of having been involved, aren't traceable back to the origins of their criminal trades in the first place, selling a girl for cash, etc. Oh, there's a significant amount of, should we mute the troll? Yes, we should mute the troll. There is a significant amount of proof that Trump laundered money for Russians. There is a significant amount of proof that Russians frequently traffic in children. The Yandex is a Russian company now, a search engine operating in Russia, and Facebook was partners with it at one stage. Accusing people is not nice. Yes, but ignoring evidence of facilitating child sex trafficking is worse than not nice. So you shouldn't continue to do that. So yes, Trump, Yandex, involved in sex trafficking. They other search engines like Google, Bing even, they don't promote child pornography, whereas Yandex does allow you to access child pornographic websites, and they do also allow you to access websites that will give you tips for how to evade police detection, how to evade justice systems, the FBI, Interpol, etc. Or you can go and produce evidence, look at evidence for yourself. So you can Google Yandex and see how they've been. Well, I'm not encouraging you to go and use it to access child pornography. That's a criminal offense. But I'm just telling you that it's a Russian site that has made it possible to access that with less detection than using other sources of information. Yeah, we'll just mute that. We'll go. Oh, yeah, they said, why are you obsessed with Trump? All right, so we do block them because they are probably a bored Russian person. Yes, the trolls might be out tonight, indeed. I have muted the boring troll. So if there are any letters that aren't clear in this, this is Designation 6, Consumer FX, FoxNewsAdvertisers.com, Sleeping Giants, that's the Twitter account that's very good at finding companies that are promoting or that are advertising with Breitbart. So sometimes companies just give their advertising dollars to advertising companies who then distribute it and find websites. And those companies that have inadvertently given their advertising dollars to Breitbart to fund the type of bigoted website that has a tab that says black crime, which isn't just something that virtue signalers object to. It's people with a conscience who say, yes, human nature has this fairly dark capacity to organize itself in against outgroups, so against people who have been derided as being different and stigmatized for being other. So, yeah, Sleeping Giants helps companies not ally themselves and not fund racial vilification and the promotion of violence and hatred towards African Americans through their website. Grabyourwallet.org, something similar. So I'm so happy that I've finally got a whiteboard, even as childish as it is, so that I can make that more obvious for people and expose as many people as I can to that information. Because it's apparently very good for your emotional well-being as well to take concrete steps to advance your political convictions. And I want to do more than say political convictions. I want to say moral convictions. So for me, American politics is a moral issue. It's immoral to expose our children to so much danger through the selfishness and criminality of American political leaders and the selfishness and naivety of some American voters. Still a minority of American voters, because Hillary Clinton did win the popular vote. So African American voters are usually the ones who best understand the chokehold that the Electoral College system has over presidential elections, particularly during times of greater rural and urban divides. The Electoral College favors rural voters when there is a significant division of opinion, so that rural votes are all clustered around a certain loyalty. And their loyalty, unfortunately, is to a white supremacist leader, because a lot of people in rural America are less ethnically diverse than the city coastal dwelling population. Oh, thanks, Julia. Have a great one. All right. Michael says one of these days they'll come up with a coherent argument. We know that's not terribly likely. Fascism thrives on a perversion of the emotional system. It thrives on taking any fear and anxiety you have and irrationally channeling your feelings into hatred of a scapegoated minority group, and then filling you with excitement that normal standards, normal restrictions and taboos are overturned, all in favor of advancing the group of people that you have shared omnipotence with. Shared omnipotence is a term I got from psychiatrist David Reese, which reminds me I should interview him again. I've been so happy that Nancy Pelosi was making such inroads with impeachment and bringing this to trial. But I guess I'll have that motivation to act heightened again by the developments, which is that, yes, there wasn't really any point in counting on even 4 Senate Republicans to do the right thing and to vote for witnesses, to show even a skerrick of disloyalty to Trump's demands to carry water for him and to cover up his crimes. If they're going to come in here and push back, why not make sensible points? Michael, do you think they have sensible points? I don't think Trump has left them with sensible points at this stage. Black-eyed Susan, we don't even know what you're saying yet. You haven't completed your assertive statement. I'll let Susan get it together for a little bit, and I'll go back to Twitter and see if there's any new things. Yes, it's like Watergate with morons. Where's there an earthquake? The humidity. Yeah. The humidity from the fire caused the hail. There you go. Yes, climate change has indirectly inflicted a lot of, well, not indirectly, climate change has directly magnified Australia's bushfire season, exacerbated drought conditions, dried out Australia's rainforest so that they caught fire for the first time ever. Australia's bush is often has a high propensity to catch fire through lightning strikes, but it was made much worse this year because of the higher temperatures and the drying out of not only bush areas but also rainforests. And rainforests are typically very moist, humid places that don't have bushfires, that don't burn. Okay. Yes, so Republicans were on trial and Republican senators have proven themselves to be guilty. All right, so California just had an earthquake. Even Sarah Silverman is affected. 90,000 documents for a Democrat lying about a sex act. 0 documents for a Republican bribing a foreign country to cheat in yet another election. That's a good tweet. Senators are prohibited from doing this during the proceedings. Senator Marsha Blackburn. Violating this rule is punishable by imprisonment. Wouldn't that be nice if Marsha Blackburn was imprisoned? Because she's such a traitor and because they're all such traitors. She did a live interview. Oh, goodness. I gotta go. Okay.